Good morning, folks. This is Omar Serrano, host of the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I'm coming to you live on January 3rd, and by popular vote, 7 out of 10 of you wanted me to comment on this Blake Lively situation. Now, listen, in full disclosure, I am not an entertainment consumer. I have no idea who Blake Lively is or was or is going to be. I think she used to be like one of the Mean Girls or something, or I don't know. But she's a famous person, and she is involved in a scandalous lawsuit. What appears to me to is destined for a complex litigation and discovery. And is this going to reach the heights of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard of 2022? I don't know, man. But there's a lot of craziness going on. There is a Nudity Riders. There is accusations of sexual abuse and accusations that certain people were conspiring to take down Blake Lively. And there's this Italian guy who has great hair, Justin Baldoni. I don't know who he is, but he's involved in all of this. And it appears that he is going to be clapping back in this litigation. There is multiple lawsuits flying around. I promise I'm not going to read all 4 of the lawsuits that are currently pending word for word. I'm not doing that. I'm going to break down the timeline according to the pleadings. I'm going to talk about the legal ramifications of all of it. I'm going to talk about the likelihood of success, how I would approach these lawsuits as the attorney of any one of these. And it seems like the way that I would do it is exactly the way that they're kind of going about it, which is to just blow everything up, sue them for everything. 18 causes of action, throwing everything they can at the wall to see what's going to stick. Again, I don't know anything about these people, but I'm about to get really acquainted. I don't know who is in the right or the wrong. I only know what has been pled in the complaints. So I'm coming at this from a completely fresh perspective. I'm only here to offer my legal insights about what I think is going to happen. I'm uniquely situated in that I'm practicing in LA County, which is where they're not hosting this litigation in LA County. It appears that these are federal lawsuits. Some of them are in New York. Some of them are in California. They're kind of all over the place, but I'm here near to the industry where these people operate and work. And so I've been at the Stanley Mosque courthouse when some of these more salacious cases have come about. And I got to tell you, man, it is miserable to try to get anywhere related to court in LA when you have one of these trials going on. So here we are. I got a lot to cover, and I don't got a lot of time to do it. It's going to be a crazy one. You're going to want to stick around because we're going to have a lot of fun as soon as I roll the intro now. Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started. All right, here we go, folks. And so, how do we get here? There is a legal timeline in the pleadings going all the way back to 2019, May 8th of 2019, when Colleen Hoover's novel, It Ends With Us, is published, becomes a bestseller. Wayfarer Studios secures an option to buy the book's rights. There was an actor agreement 4 years later, in May 5th of 2023, made between It Ends With Us movie, LLC, and Blake Lively's company, Blakel, Inc. That's cute. And it included a nudity writer. And what is that? It just kind of dictates the terms of, since we're going to be having nudity in this film, how is it going to come about? What are the rules? Who's allowed to be in there? Who's not allowed to be in there? What are the limits? What are the parameters? All of these things. They're very carefully scripted. Nudity scenes in Hollywood are a big pain in the ass. As you could imagine, having, They've been making movies since the late 1890s. We got damn near 140 years of history with how Hollywood conducts itself in the production of movies and the ramifications of nudity. And the biggest issue when you have these scenes is character assassination of some of the people involved. You've seen an entire industry almost get taken down because of allegations of sexual misconduct and whatnot. There's some of that in these lawsuits, and we're going to get to some of that. But they're problematic, and it's not even the sole basis of these lawsuits, but they talk about it. So let's talk about who is suing who for what. I made like a whole, not a timeline. What do you call those things? Like a chart? What did I do with it? I put my notes here somewhere. All right. So, no, that's the wrong thing. That is the wrong thing. Okay. No, potential claims. So Justin Baldoni is definitely going to be suing Blake Lively. At least that's what his attorneys come out and said, based on some of the things that have gone on with the allegations that are facing him. But in terms of these lawsuits, this is what's happening. You have a lawsuit from Blake Lively. She's suing Wayfarer Studios, among other people that have been individually named: James Baldoni, Jamey, Heath, Steve Sarowitz, Melissa Nathan, the agency PR LLC, a bunch of other people. And there's those 1 to 100, so they're going to be inevitably adding individuals to this lawsuit. For what? Sexual harassment under California Governor Code 12940, Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Is that right? Retaliation, and that's governed by a specific statute. Failure to investigate, prevent, and or remedy harassment. That is kind of a catch-all cause of action that necessarily arises whenever you have sexual misconduct alleged at an employer's place of business, where individuals who have been contracted to do business with certain individuals have failed to prevent the happenings or occurrences of sexual misconduct. And so that was a predictable one. Retaliation, again, as a count 4. There's 2 separate counts of retaliation: aiding and abetting, harassment and retaliation. That's just kind of an add-on. Breach of contract. That is another catch-all. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, false light, interference with prospective economic advantage. That's usually one that you only see in the entertainment industry, related to character assassination, which is what Lively is claiming, and her ability to work in the industry. And if you have read or watched many of the other entertainment folks who have been covering this lawsuit, they've done, I'm sure, word for word reads of that. And I'm not going to read an 80-page lawsuit or this other 87-page lawsuit where Wayfarer Studios is suing the New York Times, or this other 52-page document that hosts where Stephanie Jones is suing Jennifer Abel and others, or this other lawsuit that is 111 pages long, where Lively is suing Wayfarer Studios again for similar claims, because I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to try to make sense of what they are claiming is happening. So from the timeline, this is what we have. So it starts in 2019. Colleen Hoover. I've never read this book. I've never seen the movie. It Ends With Us. I know some of you, I'm sure, have seen or have read those books or have seen that movie. I haven't, so I'm unfamiliar. Wayfarer Studios got involved. They purchased the book rights so that they can make a movie. There was an actor engagement when they recruited Blake Lively to star in the production of that film, and made an agreement with her company, Blakel Inc. They signed an agreement on May 5th of 2023, and on January 19th, 2024, there was the inclusion of a nudity rider, which was part of the actor agreement. It was signed by both Blake Lively and Jamey Heath. So what is a nudity rider? Well, basically, when you have a nudity rider, it's giving everybody notice that everybody, look, there's going to be nudity, there's going to be a sex scene, there has to be consent that is agreed to in writing to avoid obvious lawsuits down the road. There are usually provisions for safe working conditions, like who was allowed to be there, who was allowed to give directions. What specifically are the actors going to be doing? They get really super specific. Is it actual nudity, or are they going to be wearing like skin, one of those skin covers that makes it look like they're nude, but they're not actually nude? All of those things. How vigorous is the sexual act to be acted upon going to be? What is the purpose of, they go into these whole things. There's an intimacy coordinator usually. And they allude to that in these allegations. The presence of an intimacy coordinator to observe intimate scenes. It's stipulated to, and they have that on this in this agreement. There was an agreement that it was going to be a closed set, which is sometimes required for the people that are going to be acting in either the simulated or unsimulated sexual acts that are to be filmed as part of the movie. And then how's the footage going to be used? They might detail the conditions under which the shot footage can be used. Certain lengths of time could be stipulated to. You could show this, but you can't show that. And if you should accidentally get this, then the actor should have final approval before whatever is going to be published for all of the world to see and to be memorialized in Hollywood lore forever. So they're a big deal, these nudity writers. And they had one in this film. So January 19th, fast forward to February 8th of last year now, 2024, Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel exchange these text messages discussing strategies to manage negative publicity, including the potential to bury Blake Lively. Now, these are allegations, and I don't know the veracity of them. This is what Blake Lively is claiming, that there was a coordinated plan to bury her and put her in a negative light, and it's supported by text messages that are included in the pleadings, and we'll go over some of that. That was back on February 8th. They discuss a social combat plan. In early May of that same year, in 2024, Justin Baldoni, according to Lively's lawsuit, attends a floral-themed trailer launch event for the movie itself. A couple months later, in July of 2024, Baldoni participates in a pop-up event promoting the film, and the next day, on the 26th, shares a Variety article about Francis Ford Coppola's behavior on the set with Jennifer Abel. A few days later, on July 29th, 2024, they updated the nudity rider that they had previously agreed to back in May. In August of 2024, Jennifer Abel discussed planting negative stories about Blake Lively. Melissa Nathan is involved in these conversations, suggesting ways to manage and counteract negative press. What in the F were they talking about? So essentially, what I gathered from these lawsuits is this was the plan. This was the social combat plan. So Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel engage in a text message exchange where they discuss strategies to manage negative publicity and a plan to bury Blake Lively. How are they going to do that? Well, burying Blake Lively in the text exchange, Abel relays to Nathan that Mr. Baldoni wanted to feel like Miss Lively could be buried. Why? I don't know, but that's what was discussed. Miss Nathan responds that while they could not put that in writing, as she's putting it in a text message, no less, they couldn't put it in writing that they were going to bury Miss Lively. She assures Miss Abel, and this is according to Blake Lively's lawsuit, that, we can bury anyone. We can bury anyone. And I can tell you that in Hollywood or in the entertainment industry, you can certainly bury somebody with negative press. You can 100% blackball people and prevent them from ever working in the industry ever again. You want to know the quicker way to do that is to get yourself involved in one of these lawsuits. Ask Amber Heard about what her employment prospects are in Hollywood lately, or Johnny Depp for that matter. That guy got fired from Pirates of the Caribbean by Disneyland because of, the lawsuit that went on over there. So she's over here saying that we can't put this in writing, that we're going to bury her, while she's disseminating this information in text messages. According to Lively, the aggressiveness of the plan, Mr. Baldoni questioned if the plan was aggressive enough. Miss Nathan emphasized the need to keep the full extent of their plan secret. Nothing we can say, nothing we can write we can't write that we're going to destroy her. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. And, it's in the hands of lawyers now. And so we're in on all of this. So the social combat plan, what was it? So Miss Abel states that they needed to put their social combat plan into motion. The social combat plan involved the following: social manipulation, and this included engaging in direct and constant media engagement, feeding content on traditional and social media, boosting content, and suppressing negative content about Mr. Baldoni, while amplifying negative content about Miss Lively, which is pretty much, we're not breaking any news here. Seems to be logically what the plan would entail. They mentioned something called astroturfing, which is the practice of publishing opinions that appear to come from ordinary members of the public, but are actually from a company or a political group. Think all of the Russian bots that were disseminating all of these political stories in the 2016 campaign and whatever else. It's a thing that people plant stories to sway public opinion against selected targets. Lively is claiming that's what's happened to her here. She says specifically that Miss Nathan proposed the creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change the narrative and stay on track, which would be untraceable. Well, it wasn't untraceable. She talked about engaging with the media. Miss Abel was in contact with a media contributor who was armed and ready to publish stories about Miss Lively, weaponizing feminism. There was talk of suppressing negative stories, so they worked to quiet/kill media coverage of Mr. Baldoni. They also discussed suppressing stories that reported Miss Lively felt uncomfortable on set. Oh, there's those allegations as well. They talked about shifting the narrative. Miss Nathan's team reported that they started to see a shift on social media due to efforts to shine a spotlight on Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. More talk about generating and influencing content, using third-party advocates, specific actions. So Miss Abel said that she had reckless thoughts of wanting to plant pieces this week of how horrible Blake is to work with, and that she had already spoken to the Daily Mail. And again, these are supported by text messages that are included in the allegations. Let me see if I could find the exact. Uh-oh. That was the wrong button. Oh. Well, that didn't work out so well, did it? All right. So Miss Nathan discusses with her sister. All right, yeah, we talked about that, about her wanting to report this to the Daily Mail. Now, she also discussed with her sister at the New York Post and Page 6 about removing Mr. Baldoni's religion from media coverage and his being called a misogynist. They wanted to deal with that. Miss Nathan circulates an article from the Daily Mail with the headline, "Is Blake Lively set to be canceled?" Which Miss Abel responded to him, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with that piece." To which Miss Nathan responded, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." So you have, just reading the text messages and the allegations from Miss Lively, what appears to be a coordinated plan by multiple individuals to shape information and stories and drop these real or fake stories to manipulate the narrative of Miss Lively to shield what Lively is calling the bad behavior of Mr. Baldoni. Obviously, he has something to say to that. This is Lively's side, and this is the way they went about it. They're trying to protect his behavior while throwing her under the bus, sapping her of credibility, and lending credence to the idea that whatever she's saying is a lie, basically. And by the way, it seems, now look, I don't know how Blake Lively is I don't know how she is perceived by the general public. I don't know this lady. I have no idea who she is, other than she's an actor and she's been in movies and she seems to be fairly popular. But I can tell you that in my lay person's perspective, as it pertains to what people perceive of celebrities, it appears that there is a growing segment of people that have labeled her a liar, a manipulator, all of these things that it appears these individuals have conspired to force the general public to believe about her. I don't know if what Lively is saying is true or not. It very well might not be true. I can just tell you that it appears, unless those text messages have been manipulated somehow, and I have heard rumblings of that from Baldoni's attorneys, that it appears that some of those text messages lack the requisite foundation because of various technological peccadillos, so to speak. In other words, they forged the text messages or manipulated them to make it look like that was actually a thing, but they're actually fake text messages. I'm assuming then they must have the real text messages. We'll get to the bottom of it eventually. They've promised to do that, so we'll see. We will see. We talked about, monitoring and reporting. The team monitors media and social activity, flagging and responding to media proactively and sending reports on online content, just typical PR stuff. They also produce daily sentiment reports on online opinions related to the issue. Who reads this shit, man? I mean, seriously, I'm all for like entertainment news and all of that. I'm so curious about who is their actual audience that are reading these articles about maybe Blake Lively's a bad person, or maybe Justin Baldoni is a misogynist, or maybe the two of them are liars, or maybe, whatever. Who is consuming this content? Like religiously and relying on this as if it was like, I don't know, like the New York Times or something. The New York Post is not the same as the New York Times. Entertainment journalism, well, I don't want to say that it's different from regular journalism, but there is certain levels of liberties taken in entertainment journalism that is not, historically taken in regular journalism. You could argue that against that nowadays. Journalism is not what it used to be. That is for sure. Dominic, was that you?
Yeah, I want to go create the family law live.
Oh, well, good for you being productive, sir. Thank you for doing that. By the way, we're going to be doing FLAD later. We're going to be joined by Bruce and Brad. Maybe Lauren, maybe some others. We'll see. That'll come a little bit later. but let me continue to get through all of this. Where did I leave off on my timeline? So we talked about, the Justin Baldoni Variety article. The Nudity Riders were updated on August 4th. Abel discussing plans to plant negative stories about Lively. And August 5th, Justin Baldoni sends Jennifer Abel a screenshot of an X thread as an example of a negative campaign story. And what was that? Crap. Oh, I had it here. All right. I'm having technical difficulties, folks. I just erased my entire thing. Let me just bring this back up really quick. All right. So we're back. So August 5th, Baldoni sends Abel a screenshot of an X thread. On August 7th, he's on CBS Morning talking about the film. On August 9th, the film is released. Hey, Dominic, have you seen that movie? It seems right up your alley.
No, I haven't.
Like hell you haven't. You know good and well you saw that movie. There's no chance you... I don't know. But it was released. This movie has been released. It was released on August 9th. There was negative social media campaigns, according to Lively, that were made against her. That's when they started taking off, when they released the movie. So they released the movie. Now her claim is that this entire wave of negative social commentary begins, which was part of this coordinated plan that we just described above. On August 13th, there's multiple news outlets reporting on Justin Baldoni hiring Melissa Nathan, a crisis PR manager, amidst rumors of conflict with Lively. On August 14th, there's negative online commentary targeting Lively using misogynistic and abusive language, news articles covering the controversy. And again, this is all coming from her pleadings. On or about between the months of August of 24 and December of 24, there are various media news outlets publishing stories surrounding the controversy around Justin Baldoni, discussing his ADHD diagnosis. On December 20th at around 9:45 p.m., something happens. The exact nature is kind of unclear, but Baldoni cites it in his lawsuit against the New York Times on December 31st. There's multiple lawsuits filed, and then that's kind of where we're at right now. So, as far as I could tell, the movie ends with us. It's based on this book from Colleen Hoover. She wrote it back in 2019. It got a lot of traction on TikTok. The story follows a person named Lily Bloom, a woman who overcomes a difficult childhood to start a new life and business in Boston. She meets a guy named Ryle Kincaid, a charming neurosurgeon. They develop a strong connection as their love intensifies. Lily sees sides of Ryle that remind her of her parents' relationship, Lily's first love. And this is just kind of the narrative that the story follows. It's like a rom-com, I guess. The novel becomes... I guess they've labeled it a book talk. I didn't know that was a thing, but it is a cultural phenomenon with over 2 billion views on TikTok. By the end of 2023, Colleen Hoover was the best-selling novelist in the U.S. with over 25 million books sold. In 2022, she wrote 5 of the top 10 best-selling print books of any genre. It Ends With Us was the top-selling print book of 2022. Long story short, they plan to make a lot of money with the movie adaptation of that book. It had been building in popularity for years. There were millions to be made. And so whatever happened on set, here's what I feel. Knowing nothing about these people and only seeing these lawsuits and what's going on, there must have been some bad behavior on the set. No question about it. On the part of Baldoni, on the part of Ford Coppola, on the part of Blake Lively, I don't know, man. But something happened on the set that they felt in the pleadings it necessary to mention nudity writers and social media campaigns to quiet down stories. Now, when Justin Baldoni's lawyer comes out and makes a statement that suggests that text messages may have been manipulated and have now been made the subject of this lawsuit by way of attachment, that is a serious allegation. If it is proven in court that there were doctored text messages that were used as part of a lawsuit that was seeking monetary gain, that could potentially be a federal crime. It could certainly be a felonious conduct if the local DA wanted to pick up that case, but it's not a lightweight claim. So when somebody claims that, hey, these text messages are bullshit, you don't just haphazardly say that without having a reason for saying it. I don't know what their reason is for saying it. I haven't seen that lawsuit yet. They haven't brought that lawsuit. It's been suggested that that's what they're going to do. But there's something that doesn't smell right in this. All I'm saying is, look, if I'm just reading the tea leaves here, going back 10 years now, 2014, 2015, you talk about, the Harvey Weinstein allegations. He was subsequently convicted of various counts of sexual misconduct. The guy's sitting in a prison cell right now as we speak for violating multiple women. What we learned from those lawsuits is that there has been not just obviously historical prevalence, but it is 100% a thing that things happen in Hollywood and on these movie sets that lend itself to criminal conduct. And when it happens, because you are dealing with individuals that could place you in positions of fame and circumstance that could really change your life and make you rich overnight. When people have the ability, whether it be self-believed or actual, that they can make or break your career, and you have text messages that have been identified by Blake Lively where they're specifically going to bury her, I don't know. It seems suspicious, and I don't want to jump to any conclusions because I haven't seen what Baldoni has to say about it. I can tell you what has come out so far. So basically, number one, this is what they're talking about with respect to Baldoni. I've been talking a lot about Baldoni, but these are the specifics. So Baldoni is being accused of engaging in inappropriate, unwelcome behavior towards Blake Lively and others on the set of It Ends With Us. We mentioned those nudity riders. What is the purpose of those nudity riders? It's to protect the performers from feeling uncomfortable. It is to prescribe a level of sexual contact that is going to occur between consenting adults. By signing an agreement that contains a nudity rider, you are necessarily and in writing consenting to certain levels of sexual contact, and you have outlined the parameters of how that conduct is to play out. And so the fact that you have accusations of inappropriate conduct on the part of Baldoni, in light of all of these written agreements, it's interesting. They're claiming that he was inappropriate with not just Lively, but others on the set of It Ends With Us. This includes comments on actresses' appearances, which, that is a kind of a catch-all. You could say, I've literally been involved in sexual harassment lawsuits where some guy made a joke that this lady looked like a popular Spanish television female character that always presented herself as inebriated and horny. And he makes this offhanded comment saying that she sounded like that person or was acting like that person, and it was funny and it was like a throwaway joke. She sued that effing guy for $1 million. I kid you not. Not just the guy and the company in which he worked for. The guy ends up losing his job because he's now a liability because he's brought a sexual harassment lawsuit upon the company by way of this stupid joke that he made. And this lady, I'm literally sitting here in a high rise in LA in a deposition talking about how this joke really hurt this lady's feelings and how she has suffered emotional distress as a result of it for years, and she's been forced to undergo therapy as a result of this one offhanded joke, and now she needs to be compensated for $1 million because she's never going to be the same ever again. I say that with a purposeful tone of sarcasm in my voice because I was, number one, defending that guy, and number two, I thought that lady was full of shit. If you ask my personal opinion about that lawsuit, I think that the lady was in it for a cash grab, and she wasn't really going after my guy. She was going after the company in the hopes that they would settle. And guess what? They did settle with her. She didn't get $1 million, but she got a substantial amount of money that I'm sure funded whatever her retirement plans were. At least partially, anyway. I don't know how far you can go with what she got, but you know, it was she had a plan and she exercised it and she won. So good on her. There's other claims. It's not just inappropriate comments. And by the way, the comments on the appearance of some of these actresses, Baldoni is claimed to have acknowledged in writing. It was reported that there was another actress who stated that she couldn't talk to him outside of a scene. There are also allegations that he made comments about Lively's weight. I don't know, man. At what point do I really don't want to pass judgment on these accusations, because it really what she's doing in raising these issues is painting a backdrop of an inappropriate environment that was perpetuated by the studios and allowed to happen that made everybody uncomfortable and produced these unworkable working conditions that she was forced to endure when she was filming these very sexually charged scenes, evidenced in writing by the Nudity Riders. And so I don't want to make light of those allegations. And I don't know the specifics. And I don't even know what Baldoni's... Well, I know what he's going to say. He's going to deny it all, right? There's claims of sexual harassment. And these are really the big ones, I guess. Baldoni's team denies the allegations, of course. But he is accused of sexual harassment. It's alleged that his behavior was not in line with respectful workplace expectations. And how do you define that? How do you define workplace expectations? As a lawyer who has litigated these issues, I got to tell you, man, I've defended enough of these things where, you know, in my Discord, there was just a conversation that was going on, that there was somebody that was contemplating wanting to go to law school. And the reason why they might not want to go to law school was this idea that they didn't want to, and they'd never wanted to be responsible for defending people that were guilty, in essence. And of course, I'm paraphrasing. But what I learned when I got into law is that, look, just because people make allegations against people does not make them true. And the prevalence of false accusations, of false allegations, how often they occur and for what purposes, really has a jading effect. It really deteriorates your soul to have to constantly be bombarded with defending clients who you genuinely believe have been falsely accused of bullshit. Now, when I hear accusations about it is alleged that Baldoni's behavior was not in line with respectful workplace expectations, what would have been the respectful workplace allegations? Keeping in mind the context that you guys are filming a movie that inherently involves measures of nudity, and having been a human being for 44 years, understanding that it is an incredibly complex exercise to go through the act of navigating your comfort levels with another person's comfort levels whenever nudity is involved whatsoever. And what would be inappropriate? You know, I've defended sexual harassment claims where a guy literally was complimenting a lady on her sweater. And you say, oh, you don't know how the lady feels. I watched the surveillance footage of what happened. I heard the audio of what happened, and what he says, oh, that sweater looks nice on you. And that was it. And that was the extent of it. And then you think that, oh, there must have been more. There wasn't. There wasn't. On the strength of that one compliment, she sued this individual for 7 figures. Did she win? No, she lost that one. Matter of fact, they ended up dismissing that one because of others. But you get inundated with these accusations about what constitutes workplace appropriateness versus what doesn't. And it's infuriating to litigate. It's just so infuriating. Number one, because lawsuits are a lot of work. And imagine spending your entire life and going through undergrad and going through law school, and you have all these big dreams about what it's like to be a lawyer, what it means to be a lawyer, and you want justice, and you want to change the world, and you want to do all of these things. And the thing that you are spending 80 hours a week on is sifting through thousands of pages of text messages, trying to find a singular sentence that, according to them, under the appropriate context, is supposed to be construed as sexual harassment. Going through all of that and then getting through all of that, having spent 3 weeks pouring through these communications, these text messages, to realize that, son of a bitch, that's really all it was. He complimented her sweater, and he didn't do anything overt. He didn't even touch her. He didn't do anything. Like, he looked at her for like a couple of seconds and then moved on. And if you could be sued for sexual harassment for that, then Jesus, you know what? Maybe working remotely isn't such a bad idea. And then lawyers would get involved, and they would find a way to make Zoom meetings forms of sexual harassment. I kid you not. And you think I'm kidding. I'm not. Sometimes the act of being a lawyer, it's deleterious on your soul for reasons like this. You get these entertainment venue lawsuits, and they start throwing all of this stuff out. I'll never forget the one clip. We were in the heart of the Me Too movement, and there was this one lady that was accusing Morgan Freeman of sexual harassment. And by the way, I am not defending Justin Baldoni, because I don't know who's right or wrong. I'm just stating that I have been historically frustrated by these kinds of lawsuits, because on average, they're ridiculous. Now, look, she could be 100% in the right. And I'm not making any commentary whatsoever about the veracity of her claims or the merits of her claims. I'm just saying that it gets to be a bit much in Hollywood when this lady accuses Morgan Freeman of sexual harassment. You know what? I'm going to play the claim. I'm going to play the clip for you. I'm quite certain I'll find it pretty quickly. Morgan Freeman accused of sexual misconduct. Literally the voice of God. And this was the basis of it. Oh, is this a clip? Yeah, this is the clip. So this is the clip, all right? Whenever I think about sexual harassment claims, my mind immediately goes here. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let me just share my screen with you with this Morgan Freeman clip. When I think of sexual harassment claims in Hollywood, my mind always starts here, just to kind of grain of salt on everything. But this was the claim against Morgan Freeman.
Now it's Morgan Freeman's turn to fuel the wrath of the Me Too movement. 8 women are coming forward to accuse the 80-year-old Oscar winner of inappropriate behavior.
Right when I walked into the room, he began to make sexually suggestive comments to me.
One accuser is CNN entertainment reporter Chloe Malas.
CNN reporter, sexually suggestive comments to me. He's making sexually suggestive comments to me, and she's sitting there and she's all dressed up in her journalism garb, and she got her makeup and her hair done. She's ready to come out and tell her story of her peril, of her emotional distress at the having been imperiled by the sexually suggestive conduct of Morgan Freeman. A Hollywood icon who spent an entire career, over 50 years, building his character and his professional prowess, who has a legacy, who is literally on the Walk of Fame in L.A., who is going to go down in history as one of the greatest actors of the 20th century, who, by the way, is still acting and working. He's on that show Lioness, and he's excellent in that show. But here is this lady who was insulted by how Morgan Freeman acted. And this is what he did.
Who says Freeman made shocking remarks to her when he was promoting his movie Going in Style with Alan Arkin and Michael Caine. Maloss was 6 months pregnant at the time she interviewed the three stars last year.
Take note of Freeman's eyes in this clip.
Let's take note of Freeman's eyes. Okay.
One time I congratulated the woman on being pregnant and she wasn't. And so I've never done it again. For 50 years, I've never done it.
You've learned your lesson.
I learned my lesson.
Lord, do I wish I was there.
It was unlike anything I've ever experienced.
An expose on CNN's website quotes one production assistant on the movie as saying Freeman kept trying to lift up my skirt and asking if I was wearing underwear. Some of the women accused Freeman of unwanted touching and
By the way, this is an old news report. All of these other allegations, nothing ever came of it. But her example of what he did to her, that's what she said. I remember, I can't find the clip here, and I apologize that I don't have it. I didn't have it up on the right. I didn't plan to go into that. Oh, is this the actual one? Did I find it? Because she just kind of, yeah. Let me see if this is the one.
I see it at investigation.
Let me make sure that my screen is still being shared with you all. I think it is. But just the reaction of the other two women because that was literally the extent of it. Just watch Morgan Freeman's eyes. And then he says, oh boy, do I wish I was there. And he wasn't even talking about her. He was talking about something that the other guy said. And then she felt the need to say, well, if you were there, you would have felt what I felt. This is what she said.
Has uncovered a pattern of alleged inappropriate behavior.
8 said that they were victims of harassment or inappropriate behavior. 2 of those 8 said that they were actually subjected to unwanted touching by Freeman. Now, something very telling is that only 2 of the people, Carol, that Ann and...
No, that's not the clip. That's not the clip that I'm talking about. You know what? Go look up that clip. It's the one where she's literally being interviewed by these people on CNN, and then the woman was like, all right, so they're waiting for the punchline, and then she's like, oh, but if you were there, you would have felt what I felt. Anyway, the whole reason I went off on that tangent is because when you get sometimes these sexual harassment claims in Hollywood, I always go back to that Morgan Freeman claim. Now, look, there have been legitimate claims of sexual harassment because Hollywood is an ugly place. It's an ugly place to work, and there's lots of ugly people in Hollywood. Harvey Weinstein was a monster. There is video evidence of him. Just look, some lady comes up to his hotel room and she's there to audition for a thing. He treats it like pornography casting couch. He's like touching her leg and just being super creepy about it. And by the way, Harvey Weinstein is not a conventionally handsome guy, to put it lightly. But he's touching on her leg because he's Harvey Weinstein, the big movie producer. And, you know, he can make or break your career. And if you give in to his sexual whims, then you might yourself become a celebrity. And if you don't, you might be blackballed. Guy's sitting in a jail cell. There is 100% legitimate claims. On the other spectrum of that, if Harvey Weinstein is one extreme, then you have to look at this Morgan Freeman claim as the other extreme, where he's being accused of sexual harassment because look at his eyes and look what he said to me. And you guys saw on the video what actually happened, and that was it. But based on her interpretation, that was she was emotionally imperiled because of how uncomfortable he made her. So there's that. Let me get back to these allegations. Alleged that so creation of a hostile work environment. Baldoni, along with Jamey Heath, is accused of contributing to a hostile work environment on the set of the film. Has claimed that an all-hands meeting was convened to address the issue. Which, if there really was an all-hands-on-deck meeting to address sexual harassment on the set, that really should be documented. And if that is coming from Lively's lawsuit, what she's basically saying is that they knew that it was an issue, that they attempted to remedy it, but what they did wasn't good enough, and so therefore it continued. And so that's really, well, it's one of the causes of action that she's having. Again, she talked about the retaliation, the smear campaign. He's accused of retaliating against Lively after she raised concerns about his behavior. It's alleged that he launched a social manipulation campaign. We talked about that. This included the use of social media to bolster his own image and suppress negative content about him, while augmenting the spread of negative stories about Lively. Baldoni is also accused of directing his team to share private messages from survivors on his Instagram feed using survivors' stories to protect his image. What I know is Baldoni is not taking these allegations lying down. He has threatened to release every single text message between him and Blake Lively that he's ever received or shared. So that's forthcoming, presumably in a lawsuit that he's going to file. He may or may not file a lawsuit. They might end up settling this thing. But this does not look like the kind of story that's going to fade silently into that good night. This is not the kind of lawsuit that gets settled. This is the kind of lawsuit that we've seen historically. People are going to want their day in court. It's not really so much about the money, the monetary damages in this case, although in this case it might be. But very famously, Gwyneth Paltrow pursued a lawsuit against a guy who accused her of negligently running him over on a ski slope, and she sued him for $1. And by the way, she won. It's alleged that Baldoni's actions have undermined his public image as a feminist ally. In spite of his public statements about supporting women and listening to them, his behavior on set was seen as contrary to what he portrays his image to be. There was one allegation that Baldoni's exploited the struggles of individuals facing terminal illnesses for his own gain in his show, My Last Days. It's claimed that he weaponizes therapeutic language, presents himself as thoughtful and supportive, but in reality, none of the proceeds from that show benefited any of the individuals that were profiled. I've never personally watched that show, but that's what people are saying. Of course, they would say that. Anytime anybody tries to do anything good in Hollywood, there's always a tinge of grossness to it. You know, doesn't it feel that way? He's accused of making misleading public statements, including those that appear to take credit for the film's success. There are also claims that he publicly downplayed any discord between himself and Lively while privately orchestrating the smear campaign. There was a crisis PR team. Baldoni's decision to hire a crisis PR team, which, you know, I'm not against people going that route, hiring a PR team to deal with negative publicity. It's a really good idea to do that. And I don't see it as disingenuous at all. I think that oftentimes it's really easy to get people who are emotionally invested in these situations, who are trying to defend themselves. It's really important for them to argue their defenses appropriately, because failure to do that could just come off wrong. It could come off wrong to judges. It could come off wrong to attorneys. It could come off wrong to the general public, to future employers. So you have to approach these things delicately. And it is always best to take your emotional rantings, all the things that you want to say, and just run it through a PR team. Let's just make sure that we're not saying something that we don't need to say, while making sure that we convey a message of strength while denying these allegations and being respectful and defending yourself and all of that. And that's, you know, I can't fault the guy for doing that. I would never fault anybody for hiring a PR team. He's accused of repudiating contractual obligations with Jonesworks. It's alleged that he and Wayfarer repudiated their contractual obligations with Jonesworks and rebuffed their efforts to settle a dispute privately, which is interesting because you're not supposed to be talking about settlement talks in court. And yet here it's made its way into one of the complaints. So that's all the stuff that they are alleging on him. Hey, Dominic, how am I doing on time?
You're at 53 minutes right now.
Oh, that's not too bad. Okay. So, all right. This is what Baldoni is planning, based on what his attorney has come out and said. And by all accounts, he did not hire a lightweight in the entertainment industry whatsoever. He got himself a top-flight attorney who has come out swinging. Now, these lawsuits were just filed, and he's already talking about counterclaims, counter lawsuits, and all these kinds of things. And by the way, just because somebody files, okay, I don't want to make too big of a deal of the fact that Baldoni is going to file a cross complaint against multiple entities, because it's not. I mean, it's expected. Whenever I am defending one of my clients in civil litigation, one of the first things that I do is there a way that we can cross sue this guy for anything? If they're alleging breach of contract on our side, then we're going to allege breach of contract on their side. If they are alleging claims of sexual misconduct, then we're going to allege claims of fraud and manipulation and faking text messages and, whatever else is going to stick. Obviously, it's going to be within the facts, but it is a really bad plan to go into the defense of a civil lawsuit without cross-suing the other individual. Why would you do that? If you do that, then the weight of justice is off, because this person is suing, plaintiff is suing for $100 million. And if this person is just defending a lawsuit, then if they win or lose, if they win, then they don't got to pay the money, cost of litigations. If they lose, they're on the hook for $100 million. So wouldn't it make sense and give both parties equal footing in settlement discussions if you have a $100 million lawsuit on this end and an equal $100 million lawsuit on this end? That way, both of you guys are at risk of potentially losing a huge 9-figure monetary judgment. And it's not just win or lose. We have nothing to lose. If you lose, you're going to lose a big monetary judgment. You got to put pressure on both sides. And I got to tell you, there's been very, very few civil litigations that I've ever been a part of where you could not conjure a cross suit against plaintiff for a lawsuit that was brought against them. And so the fact that this is going on, of course they're going to cross sue. Of course they're going to do that. Everybody's going to sue everybody. This is going to be complex litigation. There's going to be, gosh, man. What is the timeline for this case? If they take this all the way to trial, I got to imagine this is at least 3 to 4 years of litigation before they ever make it into a courtroom. I couldn't imagine it going any quicker. I mean, I could, but there's too many lawyers involved for that to happen. This is not going to be resolved this decade. Maybe not. Maybe towards the end. But this is going to be a big legal mess. So there are plans for Baldoni to sue Blake Lively. It hasn't been officially confirmed. In other words, it hasn't been filed, but her attorney came out and said, Baldoni's attorney came out and said that his team is actively considering preparing to sue Lively for a multitude of different things. He used the word absolutely. There's going to be a lawsuit filed against Blake Lively. Legal team stated there are other bad actors involved, and make no mistake, this will not be the first. This will not be the last lawsuit. So it's not just Lively that's going to be sued. There's other individuals. Who? I don't know. But like I said, this is going to become complex litigation. He might end up suing some of these other ladies that were involved in these text messages, for all I know, for maybe misconstruing what he meant by having an aggressive defense as to some of these allegations of his bad conduct. I don't know. Baldoni's lawsuit against the New York Times includes descriptions of Lively's alleged actions, such as threats to quit the production, issuing ultimatums that cause her to exert control over the film. That pretty much lays the groundwork for the beginnings of a lawsuit against Blake Lively. Obviously, lawsuits of slander, defamation, putting his name in a false light, interference with prospective economic advantages, perhaps interference with his ability to maintain a career because of this active smear campaign against him. All of these things served as the foundation for what he could possibly sue her for. There's been talk of maybe a breach of contract claim. Baldoni's team is alleging that Lively, by way of her threatening to quit the production, essentially amounted to a breach of contract on her part, where they were forced to make certain accommodations to their detriment in order to keep the project going. Obviously, defamation claims for Lively's false accusations of his poor behavior, which has damaged his reputation, causing emotional distress and all, the whole thing. Tortious interference. It could be argued that Blake Lively's actions have interfered with the production of the film and with Baldoni's ability to market the film, which I would argue the opposite. If you haven't seen or heard of that movie now, I mean, I know about it now. If I know about it, it's usually for a bad reason, but I don't think that you could really ask for better publicity to go see a film other than that. It is a film that is at the grassroots of a complex lawsuit that's going to be the subject of litigation and entertainment news for years to come. Who wouldn't go see that movie? I mean, if you were into that kind of a thing, I'm still not going to watch it. But there's others that if they were on the fence about watching that movie, they're definitely watching it now. We got to see, maybe they're going to look for clues in the chemistry between Lively and Baldoni on camera. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that there's probably going to be some pushback to the sexual harassment allegations. I think that what they're going to probably try to do is assert that those sexual harassment claims was a mechanism for which Blake Lively was able or tried to control the production of the film in some regard. False statements, taking text messages out of context. Baldoni's lawyers, they stated that they plan to release text messages that show Lively is a liar and acting inappropriately. And they also claim that Lively is taking text messages out of context in her complaint, which, by the way, I don't know what other context to take the text messages that we saw when the lady was like, look, this is just what we do. I can't put this in writing that we're going to destroy her, as she's putting it in the text message, but they're going to destroy her. They're going to end her career. They're going to cancel her. They're going to do, how else are you to interpret? I'd love to see the proper context for which those were made. And maybe, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe it was all a big joke just gone awry. Maybe that's what it was. Whether they're right or wrong, they're going to argue that anyway. They're filing the lawsuit, so we're going to talk about it, I guess. Baldoni's response to the lawsuit has obviously been the denial of any wrongdoing, denies all allegations of wrongdoing, and claims that the smear campaign was not against Lively, but rather it was in defense of Baldoni. In other words, all right, so yeah, we said that stuff, but it was because you were being an asshole. You were accusing us of bullshit, and we had to defend ourselves. So yeah, I said it, but I said it for a reason. Is basically what they're going to go with, I guess. I'm sure, he's innocent of all the wrongdoings. He would never comment on Blake Lively's weight, jokingly or otherwise. Lively is prone to taking jokes out of context, but they would never. This hostile takeover narrative in his lawsuit against the New York Times, Baldoni's lawyers are basically arguing that Lively executed a hostile takeover of the film project, which I don't even know what that means. I mean, I know what it means, sort of, but it seems to me like y'all were making a movie and in line to make money. It's like one of these things, like when you have lawsuits that involve real estate agents, and then we make an agreement that, okay, we're going to sell the house. It's like, okay, but I want to pick the real estate agent. It's like, okay. People are suspicious of the intentions of real estate agents when I haven't really ever seen a real estate agent who was commissioned with the job of selling a house who wasn't trying to get the maximum amount of money possible. But they would make that argument. Oh, he's biased. That's her friend. Even if it's her friend, doesn't he want to get a big commission, and so therefore he's trying to get as much money as he can? It's a silly argument. So this hostile takeover narrative, like what would be in it for Lively? To hostilely take over a production, usually those kinds of people don't make it very far in Hollywood. They become difficult to work with. Their narrative becomes, oh, you could contract and you could do all these things, but she's such a pain in the ass. You know what? Just go get frickin' Taylor Swift. It's not worth it. She's not a $20 million picture type actress. So just get somebody else. Get an A. I don't know if Blake Lively is an A-lister or not, but get someone else. Get somebody who's not going to do hostile takeovers. What would be the advantage to Lively to do such a thing? Would be my counter, or not even my counter, my question to that accusation. Baldoni's side has accused Lively of using sexual harassment allegations as a publicity stunt. I don't know how I feel about that as a defense. They claim Lively files a complaint, but not a lawsuit, and then doubles down and then files a lawsuit. Again, I guess what is in it for Lively to pursue these sexual harassment claims? It seems like the point of the lawsuit was not sexual harassment claims. That's not, I think, what she's going for with all of this. If it was just about the sexual harassment, if it was just about the comments about her weight, if it was just about an inappropriate culture on sets of the filming of the movie, I don't think that this lawsuit gets filed. I think that what set her off, what she became made aware, that there was an active smear campaign against her, and it seems readily apparent to me that there is some concern that she has a point. But what she's really defending is that they're trying to cancel me. They're going to try to destroy my career anyway. This is the only way I could move on with my career and still remain a thing in Hollywood. If I don't defend myself now and they just proceed with this smear campaign, then I'm finished. Maybe that's what she felt. But in order to show why they would do a smear campaign against her, because then we'd ask the same question. What would be in it for Baldoni to do that to her? Like, why? Well, because all of these other things were going on, that if it got out, it was going to put him in a negative campaign. And he tries to hold himself up as like this guy that's like trying to do the right thing and is all for women's rights and is trying to help people. But in actuality, he's a fucking asshole. And if that gets out, then he's finished in terms of, I don't know, whatever they think. So the sexual harassment claims, I don't think that they're doubling down. I think that her attorneys made a decision to include those sexual allegations, knowing that they were not overt. I don't know, maybe they weren't like the most extensive or severe sexual misconduct allegations you could possibly have, but they paint a context of why they felt the need to go onto the smear campaign. Because if it comes out, then bad things happen. And so therefore, let's just discredit her and elevate him. That's kind of how the Lively lawsuit makes sense. And I can tell you that I know nothing about this lady, Blake Lively. I know nothing about her. But the small parts that I've been able to read, there has been a tenor from the general public that she's a liar, that she's making it up, that she's overreacting, that there's all these things. And so I am not taking sides just yet on who is right or wrong in this. I need more information. Look, the pleadings are not where you're going to get the best facts. We're going to need depositions. We're going to need to see the discovery. We're going to need to go through the litigation to really break it down. Before all of this is over, I'd imagine we're going to have a full-on transcript of all of the text messages back and forth from all of the individuals that were involved. And it's going to be, it's going to be something to talk about at least. I don't know, man. I can see the lawsuit from Lively's perspective. If I'm really being objective about Baldoni's planned defense, it seems to me that he is countersuing, number one, because it's the thing to do. But number two, I think that there is some real concern in his camp that those text messages are really bad. And we're going to need to paint this in the appropriate context, because if the general public believes those text messages about this active smear campaign, if they really believe that, well, then they're going to end up inevitably believing the allegations of sexual harassment. And really, that's kind of how it's going to work. Unless they settle this out of court and just like shut everybody up, non-disclosure agreements and all of that kind of thing. If this actually goes to trial and Lively wins, then not only is he a sexual harasser and purveyor of poor sexual misconduct behavior on the set of movies or whatever he's been accused of doing, But he's trying to cancel people to protect his own ass. And that somehow makes him infinitely worse. If you believe those things, right? So they have to take this posture. And I can't say it enough times. I don't know who's right or wrong. I am just as clueless as you and as to the veracity of all of these claims. I'm just saying, from an attorney's perspective, Lively's lawsuit only makes sense if what set her off was the smear campaign. I don't think that she's filing a sexual harassment lawsuit on mere allegations of sexual harassment. Not on the strength of those allegations. And for Baldoni's side, the only way you can really truly defend him, look, there was a smear campaign, you might as well take it all the way. She's a liar and taking these out of context and abusing a woman's ability to raise claims of sexual misconduct because it's going to somehow benefit her in the industry. I don't know, man. But that's how I interpret Baldoni's attorney's statements about how he plans to defend his client. Did we talk about the counter accusations? Baldoni's side has accused Lively of using the... Yeah, we talked about that. Baldoni's lawyers have defended his actions as being directed by the intimacy coordinator, not sexually harassing, and stated that his inquiry about Lively's weight was reasonable and made in good faith. You know what that tells me? It tells me that somewhere there is recording of the incident in question where he made a comment about her weight. It tells me that there was something funny that happened on set related to their sex scenes that violated the Nudity Rider's inherent in the actors agreement that they signed back in May. Baldoni's team states they were taken aback by the groundswell of public support for Baldoni, which they claim was organic. Was it organic, or was it the result of the active smear campaign that's been going on since apparently May of 2024 that has attempted to elevate him while discrediting her? I don't know. That doesn't feel organic if that's the case. Baldoni's team has repeatedly pointed out that Lively's claims are false, that she was not uneasy around him when they were working together. Baldoni and Wayfarer claim they signed a letter on Lively's behalf under duress. Interesting. Baldoni's team claims that they are prepared to fight the allegations, stating that the text message will be released that show Lively is lying and acting inappropriately. So there is that. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the Wayfarer lawsuits. I mean, they're basically along the same lines of what we've already talked about. All right. I think we should talk about the contractual history of the Nudity Rider, because it's going to be important in this litigation. I have some notes on it, but there is several versions of the Nudity Rider that is floating around. As far as I can tell, this is what I can make of it. So the initial document presented by Lively's legal team, it outlines several safety and protection provisions, many of which directly address concerns about nudity and simulated sex scenes. And the key points were as follows. There was, like we said, there was going to be an intimacy coordinator present at all times when Lively was on set. The set was supposed to be closed for intimate scenes. A closed set was required during rehearsals and filming of scenes involving nudity or simulated sex, which, gosh, by the way, man, look, I've never been an actor like that. I've never been involved in a sex scene before, but I gotta imagine it's probably weird as F to do like a simulated sex scene with like a bunch of people like looking at you. It's just, because I can't imagine it being like sexy at all. Like I can't imagine it being like appealing, like, oh, you're involved in this simulated thing. But so many things got to be flowing through your mind, like the comfort of your partner, whether or not, maybe whether or not you become aroused, and if that's going to be considered like a faux pas or a violator of the Nudity Rider. I've heard of stories of that happening before, on non-pornography movies, by the way. It just has to be a weird thing. I could imagine why people would be ultra on edge when it comes to those kinds of scenes. You're putting yourself out there in a way that you probably are not comfortable with, and you're doing it anyway, and you're doing it for artistic merits, and you're going to be judged one way or another, whether it be by the people on set or by the viewers of the movie. You're giving something of yourself. And I just imagine it's got to be weird for everybody, the guy and the girl or whoever is involved. There was not to be any improvising intimate scenes. That would make me nervous. It's like, holy shit, I got to get the blocking completely perfect, you know? And what does that even mean? Like the kiss can't be more than 3/4 of a second. And like, oh man, that's got to put somebody on edge. No inappropriate comments or touching. Comments on Lively's physical appearance or physical touching were only to be done in connection with character and scene work. Again, man, if I'm a guy on that set, I would be really effing nervous. What does it mean, inappropriate content? All right, so you tell me where you want my hand to go, and you tell me how you want my body position, and I will try to do exactly that. It becomes like this weird game of Twister. Jesus. No discussions of personal sexual experiences. I don't know. Gosh, man. You know what? I don't think I'd want to do one of these things. I'm all the way out, man. Like, I can't even be like a human being. Like, if you can't have like just honest, like regular folks conversations that you would have without like threat of violating the Nudity Riders, it just doesn't sound like a good time, man. It does not sound like something I would ever want to engage in. And it would make me nervous to ever be a part of something like that. Again, knowing what could happen. And again, they've been doing sex scenes in movies for hundreds of years now, man. Most of them don't end up in lawsuits, but some of them do. And I think back about, what was that one movie? Last Tango in Paris with Marlon Brando. He had a sex scene in that movie. I wonder what the Nudity Riders were in that movie when he literally, and off camera, basically sexually assaulted that lady in their sex scene. Like, he literally digitally penetrated her, and she had no idea that was going to happen. And so it's like this sexual assault scene that turns out it was actually her reaction was pretty genuine. She had no idea that any of that was going to happen, but it was the 70s, and you got away with more stuff back then. No unauthorized entry to Lively's trailer. That seems reasonable. No filming nudity without a SAG complaint Nudity Rider. Well, we got that already, so we're fine. Lively's representative on set. Lively could have a representative present at all times. Reasonable. Supposed to be COVID-19 protocols. In 2024? So what were they supposed to, like, wear a mask? What were we doing? No retaliation. There was to be no retaliation against Lively for raising concerns. So whistleblower provisions. An all-hands meeting, an in-person meeting was to be held before production resumed to confirm and approve the plan for implementation. There was another document that was executed on January of 2024 that formalized many of the protections outlined in the initial document. There were specifics. There was a body double stipulation. It was specified that the use of nudity or simulated sex scenes involving Lively or her body double were subject to the terms of the Nudity Rider, and only permitted footage would be used. Day players. All the players involved in nudity scenes must be engaged through customary industry talent agencies and not personal connections. I would hate to have to be the talent coordinator for all of that. Additional producer oversight. Wayfarer had agreed to engage an additional experienced producer approved by Lively to supervise production, monitoring safety, and ensuring compliance. It makes me wonder if this Nudity Rider was more overbearing than, I guess, normal nudity writers. and makes me wonder if this is what Baldoni's team means when they say that she was using her perceived uncomfortableness to take over the production and dictate terms. Maybe. It just seems to be a prominent piece of this lawsuit. I don't have the full text of the Nudity Rider, obviously. But it's been indicated that any footage depicting underage characters engaged in sexual acts was going to be prohibited. Seems pretty common sense. Anyway, the Nudity Rider. It was supposed to be for the raising and appeasing of safety concerns for everybody involved. Lively seemed to be the most vocal, and understandably so. I'm not going to fault anybody for being uncomfortable and having to film a scene like that. I would say that if they were using body doubles, then maybe just like take yourself out of like the more revealing part. You know what? I don't know. I'm not going to judge. At any rate, it was a legally binding contract that needed to be abided by. They signed certain things, they say, because they were under duress. We're going to see what they come up with. So I promised you guys that I was not going to verbatim, word for word, read all 4 of these lawsuits, and I didn't. I took notes. I tried to make sense of the allegations as best I could, and I tried to give you an idea of how I might defend Baldoni or might represent Lively. Where do I land? Who is right or who is wrong? I don't see much fault on the part of the production companies in light of the fact that they had written contracts in place that were designed to keep everybody safe during production. I don't know how far they're going to get with that. I think this is a lawsuit between Lively and Baldoni. I think that Baldoni has put himself out there to be this guy who is this good dude that's trying to do the right thing in the world. And, well, some people have contrary opinions to that, and it's based on his conduct on set. What does that mean? I don't know, man. But there are people out there that don't think that he's such a good guy. Lively is one of them. She sued because she caught wind of a smear campaign that was actively being executed to discredit her as an actress and to lift him up as an actor. As a prominent member of Hollywood society, I guess. Like I said, I don't think that this is about sexual harassment. I think that largely what this is a lawsuit about defamation, slander, putting people in a false light, and conspiracies to cancel Blake Lively. For Baldoni, it's going to be basically about the exact same thing. Look at these causes of actions. We talked about sexual harassment. There's a couple different versions of that. There's retaliation insofar as the things that we had discussed, failure to investigate or prevent, which I see no merit to that claim, given the fact that there is literally a nudity rider that exists. Aiding and abetting, breach of contract, emotional distress, negligence, false light, invasion of privacy is always a fun one. False light, it's taking me right back to law school with all of these claims. Putting somebody in a false light. It's taking me right back to the bar. I'm scrolling through this complaint right now. There's a lot of, you guys have all seen these text messages. I'm not going to be the one to go through it for the 500th time, the other content creator. I just think if I'm reading between the lines, this is a lawsuit about retaliation, protection of one's image, and it appears that people on Baldoni's team actively executed a smear campaign against Lively in anticipation of claims of his bad behavior on set. Is that because they knew that he behaved poorly? Or she somehow told him that she was going to say that to people, knowing that it was false? I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess time will tell. But that's all I really have for you on the Lively situation for now. It is a mess. It is a mess. I wasn't invested before this case, and I still don't know who these people are, I'm still not going to watch them. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll watch the movie. But I am intellectually curious about what's going to happen with this case going forward. So I will cover it as things happen. I'm not going to cover it in the douchebaggery, entertainment news kind of a way. I'm really just going to look at it logically from the legal arguments, mostly because I've been involved with these lawsuits before and I hate them. I could tell you this. I've never brought claims. I've never brought a lawsuit against anybody like this, alleging sexual misconduct on the grounds of making inappropriate jokes. I've never done that, but I can see why they did it in this case, because it paints the picture and provides context for the larger claims that we've already discussed. From Baldoni's perspective, I can see if he did nothing wrong, why he would want to counterclaim. I can see if he did stuff wrong, why he would want to counterclaim. His approach and his response to all of this is logical, and who's going to benefit from this? I have no idea, man. I just know that there's going to be a lot of evidence coming out that is going to be salacious in nature that I'm sure is going to give us things to talk about for months, if not years to come. So we will see. And with that, folks, I'm going to conclude today's show. I'm getting ready to do some Family Law After Dark. If you guys want to join us on that. Hey, Dominic, you over there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Could you redirect everybody to the FLAD live that we're about to do and maybe drop a link in the comments if somehow that doesn't work? I don't know.
Yeah, I did it. I'll add the link, though, just in case.
All right. So what are we talking about on FLAD today?
I got us some pretty good ones, or at least I think they're pretty good. So
I'm going to have to take your word for it. Last time you were allowed to select the topics of conversation, people had things, well, I had things to say about it. I think people were entertained, but we'll see. Folks, we're going to do some FLAD tonight. You're going to stick around from that. It's always a fun show. We're going to have various guests joining us on the show, and we'll see where we're at with that. Give us about 5 minutes and we'll get started. I love you guys. Have a good weekend if I don't hear from you on FLAD, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.